Hello there, I'm Hinda Hashi. Welcome to another episode of Her Associates. In studio with me today, I have a very lovely guest, the very lovely Fathia Absie. Welcome, Fathia.
Thank you so much.
Now, Fathia needs no introduction, but for those who don't know, tell us, who is Fathia?
I wish you would be the one introducing me. I would much rather that you did that, but I guess, first of all, I'm grateful to be here today. Thank you so much for inviting me. Who is Fathiapsia? I guess I'm most comfortable in saying that I'm a mother, and I am a social activist, a human rights activist rather than social activist, actually. A writer, storyteller.
Very great. You were very brief. Okay, Fathia's latest book, Mohado, was showcased at this year's Hargeisa International Book Fair. When did you get into writing? And she has previous works as well, but tell us, when did you get into writing?
I've been writing for a while now, for at least good 15 years, but you know, there's a difference between writing and writing, you know. I started writing poetry in the beginning, over 20 years ago, and I always knew I wanted to be a storyteller, so, but I didn't really get into publishing and things like that till about 12, 15 years ago. And then I got into filmmaking about 10, 11 years ago. And I published this is my second book. Mohado is my second book. The first Somali book.
The first Somali book.
The one before that was English.
Yeah, it was in English,
yeah.
Yes. So you were a big part of this year's book festival. I mean, whole night to yourself, very grand affair, mashallah. The book fair we can say, was a huge success for Somaliland, especially in the literature and the arts sector. What are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts for participation improvement and maybe some advice on the youth who'd like to get a career that's more focused in the creative side?
Well, this was my first time participating in the book fair, and I have to say it was just much grander and more interesting than I thought originally. It was truly a pleasure to be part of this year's book fair, and to be invited and participate in such a enlightening affair, mashallah. And I think, and most of the, not necessarily the participants, but the vast majority of the audience were young people, yes, which was very inspiring, I think, because it finally shows that our young people are becoming more and more intellectual, more interested in, you know, the world affairs and the human condition, and especially in writing. Many young people came to me and said, you know, what advice would you give me when in terms of writing and publishing my work? And it was fascinating, and it was really beautiful. I honestly can't say I wish they did this in terms of improvements, because it was just far beyond my original imagination. Yeah, I thought it was just very, very well organized, very well thought of, and just brilliant, really.
Yeah, inshallah. Let's talk a little bit about empowerment, yes, for both the youth and the women. I won't talk much about men, because you all know my show focuses more on women. This is something that you're very passionate about, mashallah. And our Somali society and culture is so beautiful, but it's the 21st century, and we're still so behind on so many issues that pertain to freedom of speech and women, as well as rights. And lately there's been quite some backlash on your views when it comes to rape and consent, something that is so saddening. But it's also even more sad that people are not willing to be open and to talk about it?
Well, I've been talking about this for a while. I started an organization called Somali Women Global Network. This organization actually focuses not only on the rights of women, but the rights of everybody. We fight against injustice and inequality. And I know our people are quick to say, oh, every time you mention the rights of women and minorities or so-called, I know we don't like that word minorities, because who's minority? I mean, we have not been, there has not been any head counts, I guess you'd say. But the bottom line is the rights of women and other groups that have been subjected to injustice and inequality. When you put them together, they're actually the vast majority of our population, because women, let's say women are 50%, if not 51% of the society, and then you have children, and then you have other tribes that have been subjected to segregation and so-called minorities. Yeah, although everybody is minority somewhere. So that, I think, that's good 75% of our population. In the US, we call that system white privilege. When we're in America, it's white privilege, or in Europe even, it's white privilege. In the Somali society, I call it tribal privilege. And the tribes that use this culture, it's almost that the men, small minority group of people, have created a culture or a rule or rules that only work for them in their favor. And that culture just basically limits the rights of women, children, and other groups. And so it's a privileged class. And that privileged class, it's never easy sharing power. You must take power by demanding to get your equal rights, because we're busy saying women. I mean, they don't even mention the tribes that they have subjected to dehumanization and segregation and just so much injustice. But they're willing to say few words about women, and that is always, well, what do Muslim women want? They've been giving all the rights, far more rights than men, and more rights than the Western world has ever given to their women. I feel like the people who say things like that live in the past. Yes, women are subjected to injustices everywhere in the world, but most parts of the world, women are demanding their rights, and they're fighting back, and they have voices and discourse. In our land, it's quite the opposite. You are silenced and shut down because, what do you want? Allah has given you your rights. Are you saying Islam has not favored you? No, actually quite the opposite. Islam has favored us as women, and Allah has given us so much more than we could ever ask for. But who is between us and Allah? Who is taking away our rights? Who is dehumanizing us and discounting our humanity? It's men.
The same people who are telling you that you have those rights.
So we're not, there's no arguments between Allah or Islam and us. Our arguments is against Somali men, and a very small minority at that. Not everyone, but there are many great men in our society, but the vast majority of them are silent, and you can see that They might not be causing any harm, but they're silent. And you might as well be causing harm if you're silent.
We can argue being silent is just as bad.
Exactly, it's
Yes.
just as bad. And which is really, it makes me sad, because you'd hear a lot of them saying, I treat my women very well. The women in my family get everything they want and deserve, and they have voices. Well, that's not how society works. It's not just your woman. It's your sisters in Islam, in Somali or Somaliland, who are being subjugated to the same horrific actions, whether it's rape, martyred now. Many of them are being martyred, and their rights are being taken away. And it's not because when we ask for our rights, the rights we're demanding and we're asking are the rights given by our Creator. Nothing more, nothing less. It's nothing new. We're not, the rights of, it's the Western world, and what's next? Don't worry about what's happening in the Western world. They've taken care of themselves, and Allah is going to deal with them accordingly. And we want the rights that has given to us by Allah, not rights that the West has given us or asking us, go get your rights, because your men are taking it away from you. I find that to be so ridiculous.
No. And asking for basic human rights to be treated with kindness and with love, that's not too much. And respect. It's not too much. It's not too much to ask for.
It's not too much to ask at all.
Yeah.
Or when there's a crime committed against women and children and other groups of people, there has to be accountability. Yes. There has to be consequences. There are about 200 countries, give or take, in the world. And the only place I know, I read a lot. We do. Yeah. In our culture, it's the only place in the world where men who have raped, martyred, or can just walk away, because their tribes will come to the rescue and protect them. And what kind of society is that when people can do whatever they want and get away with it? How can you say, Islam permits certain, don't call it rape, call it beating. What do you mean? I mean, that's making excuses. Abuse of any kind is abuse, and no one has any rights to abuse anybody. And we could be different classes in so many ways, but in justice, the equality for justice, we can all afford that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has demanded of us. So it's, we must speak up. We must speak up, and not for, when women speak up for their rights, they shouldn't speak up only for their rights, but we should all speak up for one another, because we're in this together, and we should never forget that. So when men say, I've never raped anyone, I've never done anything, I'm a good father, I'm a good husband, this and that or the other, I'm always like, well, what have you done for?
What have you done for other women? For other minorities?
For other, minorities, for children. There are children, for God's sake, children that are being raped by relatives or by, outsiders or by their teachers, whether it's Quran teachers or otherwise. And what do? We cover up. We cover up everything. What kind of society are we when we treat the most vulnerable people in our society, when we bury their rights, when we subject them to such a dehumanization, taking away their rights and their voice, crying out for help. There was this young woman. There are many stories. I have many, many stories. But there's this one particular story that describes what's happening perfectly. This young girl, she's, both of her parents passed away, and her uncle takes care of them, her and her siblings. And so her cousin, older cousin, raped her. And then when he raped her, she comes to her older sister and she tells them what happened. She tells her what happened to her. And her sister said, "Don't say anything because, he's the son of our uncle who takes care of us. We can't risk saying anything." And so she shuts her down. So he comes back. When nobody when nobody did anything for her, nobody came to him or said anything, he comes back for more and raped her over and over and over again till she lost her mind, completely lost. And now she's chained, you know. Imagine that. This is day in and day out. It's very common. It's very, very common. You've seen what happened about 2 weeks ago in Hargeisa. A young woman was raped and murdered, and 3 days later there was a demonstration. You couldn't see a single man being part of that demonstration. So who are we? The men that are saying, well, I don't hurt anyone. Yeah. You might as well.
You might as well. You might as well. And there's this culture for hiding the ebb, like the story that you said. Don't bring shame to the family.
The ebb
when
and
you
the shame of who?
Yeah,
exactly. Of the criminal. You hide the shame of the criminal. Yeah? And then what happens? He continues. The saga continues.
You mentioned the organization that you created. Can you tell us more about what that does?
So, it's never easy bringing women together or any group of, any group that faces injustice and dehumanization. The worst thing that usually happens to them is that they become very divided themselves. I say when it comes to Somali women, the Stockholm Syndrome is very, very real, seriously speaking, because you've seen what has been happening the last several days, and many women have been attacking me. And why? Because I said women should not be raped by their husbands or anybody else.
But that's the problem with our society. When you get a voice, there's people who you'd think were there to support you who quickly come around.
Exactly, to the other side.
To the other side.
Yeah. So, so this organization, it's about 1.5 years old now, a little over 1.5 years. About 1.5 years. And it's very hard to bring women together. I created this because I wanted Somali women from everywhere in the world to be part of this, where we can have our own sort of like account, for instance, where we can raise money and put money so we can help sisters create scholarships, empower women who are running for offices financially. And also having a muscle, when you have money. And because let's face it, women are the muscle and the finances behind most politicians in our country. We're also quick to empower our brothers, our cousins, men, all men. But we're not willing to do that for each other. No. So I wanted to give us the opportunity, especially the enlightened, the ones that are so-called awake or woke, the opportunity to, pool their money together. Very small amount of money, like $120 a month. Yeah. That's $10 a year. That's $10 a month. It comes down to $10 a month. That in the long run, and if we pool our money together by the thousands, imagine how much money that would be. We can make a huge difference. We can even transform our society in so many ways, whether it's creating scholarships for minority groups and poor sisters from low-income families, whether it's building clinics because so many women are, losing their lives when it comes to giving birth, having a voice, just there's so much creating small businesses for women, mothers. But it's very hard because a lot of women don't want to be part of, if I'm not the one who's creating something, then I don't want to be part of it. But I think we're coming around to it. So we right now, for the past 1.5 years, almost 1.5 years, we've been it's actually been 15 months, we've been at least using our voices to highlight stories of women and children and injustices against,
for awareness
groups and awarenesses. So I think that, and we've raised a little bit of money here and there to help sisters, whether they're sisters who have been raped and who want to be out of the area where they've been raped, because you know what happens now. Everybody knows your name, or there's, even if everybody doesn't know your name, there's always a hash, and this is the one that has been, and so your life is basically over. It's very, very uncomfortable. So we get them to different parts of the, of the country, or even outside of the country, neighboring countries to neighboring countries, and we just create, for the most part, we create awareness, and we've given some scholarships. So we're doing a little bit of here and there, but I think more and more people are becoming aware of what the organization is doing and the aspirations of the organization, and I think we're gonna take off, inshallah, soon. Inshallah. There are many sisters who are part of it. I came up with the idea, but now it's no longer my idea. Many sisters are part of it and are running.
And that's good. We need front runners like you, mashallah. You're quite big on social media, mashallah, even more so on the Fathia Absie network, from storytelling to sometimes just for laughter, sometimes to produce like very thought-provoking conversations. What were your reasons in the beginning for starting the channel?
It was always to have a voice. I've always been big on wanting to have my own voice. I refused to be silenced. Even when I was a little girl, I was always very brave when it comes to saying what I want to say and giving, sharing my thoughts and opinions. And for the most part, speaking up for others who don't have the same voice for whatever reason. And then, when I got the opportunity, obviously, I wanted to create my own social networks where I can share my thoughts and stories that are important to me. And I had a huge, much more following on Facebook, but that was taken down a year and a half ago, and it's fairly coming back now. People are finding me here and there again. But yeah, it was having a voice. People misunderstand. You'd hear young people saying, well, you're older now, and you're a mother, why do you have YouTube channel, or why do you have media, Facebook and Instagram? Why don't you they just expect you to just, I guess, stay silent, die somewhere.
Yeah. Our people can be so backwards sometimes, like that.
I'm like, or do you want money? Why don't you get a job? Well, I have many jobs, I'm sorry. And this is just not about money. When you pursue something you love so much, eventually it translates to success and money, and everything else comes with it. That's what a lot of people don't understand, because you have a lot of people who pursue horrific things and actions that don't necessarily bring them joy, or just because they want money out of it. But
and not really helping anyone.
Yeah, and they're not helping anyone. In fact, they're dividing societies and creating more havoc than not. But I wanted to have voice. I was born free, and I will die free. And I want to use my voice. I am free, personally. I'm in a very good place in my life, alhamdulillah. But I also want to give voice to the voiceless, and that's very important to me.
Let's get a bit into politics. Yeah, we had very successful elections a couple of months ago. However, the success was very short-lived. I had another episode on that where it came out and we had 0 to none female representation in the most important part of our government, the lawmaking part. The people who would come up and would at least show the representation for the women who are finding it so hard in our society. What do you think we need to do to change the fact, and not the government or the lawmakers? There's talk about passing a quota that will force them to have women, but what do we need to do as a society, as women?
First of all, women need to understand that to see a successful Somali woman is to see herself in the mirror. When you educate a woman, you've educated an entire society. versus when you educate a man or give man a platform or elect a man to an office. You're lucky if he takes care of his own, family. And we also know that when women are empowered, they empowered people around them. When women get into office, they're much more conscious socially. We're mothers by nature, even if you don't have children or if you've never been married. It's the woman's, the motherly instinct is always there. We are caretakers. We will take care not only of our families, but our entire society, our land, our cities. I honestly believe if there were women running Hargeisa as mayors the last 10 years, we would not be having, we would not be seeing the horrific roads, because women are much more honest when it comes to, we're not thieves, for God's sake. We're not busy trying to fill our pockets, and maybe here and there, I'm sure I'm sure there has been some, but for the most part, and we're much more conscious about not feeding our children haram. Where men, we come from a society that actually creates this kind of you must steal something. You're not a man if you don't steal, from your government, from your office, because you're expected to be wealthy in a few years. When you take office, I don't think women would be the same way. I think we would, just as we take care of our beautiful homes, even if we don't have a big home, if it's a very small place, it's a full-time job. Women take care of everything. You know where everything is. The same thing would go for if we were managing an office, if we were managing a county or a city, because we create beauty, and we would do the same thing. So we must take responsibility for the fact that if we want a beautiful society, if we want beautiful country, if we want beautiful cities, if we want beautiful anything, it's women that make beauty. And so we should forget the personality differences or tribal differences, or we should just realize that empowering women is empowering our society, it's empowering the next generation of women, and it's empowering, our country. And women are very devoted when it comes to, getting things done, and we will get things done. And so if we want to get things done, we must elect women to office, and we must empower one another. And we must, I feel like the last election, I think the glass ceiling has many cracks on it, as Hillary Clinton has said. And so we just need to shatter the glass now. I don't see it as a failure. I think now, every time you do something, you attempt to do something, whether it works or it doesn't, it gets you closer to your goal. And I think we're much closer now than we have been. I think that the next election, I think it's going to be earth-shattering. Inshallah, bi'idhnillahi kareem.
I just back on that point. Now we spoke something about that earlier. It was quite shocking. We had a member of parliament, a lady who was running for member of parliament from Erigabo, and what she told us was that not only the men not willing to come out and to support women that are running for office, but even the women themselves are looking to endorse the men more than they would a female candidate. What do you think we need to do?
Oh my God! Well, yeah, obviously, when a group of people has been dehumanized and discounted for so long, they forget that they just don't believe that they're capable of anything. Even though they're so hypnotized, even though they see the reality that these people have never done anything for them, because we have used to always putting men front and center of everything. And also women have an issue, I think, and it's a human nature when people have been put down for so long and have been marginalized for so long. The first people they attack or mistreat are their own. Yes. You know, it's just part of human nature. It's nothing new. But I think the tide is turning. There are so many young women who are just graduating from colleges and universities and are realizing my success is conditioned to other sisters' success, because as society you have to see yourself in the mirror in order for you to even think, yes, I can do that too, I can be that too. And so we have to see the success and realize that to see another sister successful and to elect other sisters in power is seeing yourself in the mirror. And if you are a patriot, you must elect people who are going to get the job done. Yes. And women are the ones who will get the job done. And it's happening. I see the tide turning. I really do. I think every generation, each generation is much more enlightened and creative and much more brilliant the one before. And change is coming. It's coming.
Inshallah. Yeah, we're waiting for it. We're waiting for it. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Sad that our time was quite short, but the lovely Fathia Absie, writer, activist, most importantly, mother, storyteller, filmmaker, mashallah. Her latest book, Mahado, can be found at the Hill Press and other bookshops, and also online on Amazon for people who are around the world. Thank you, Fathia.